The Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time is 25 years old. As of a few weeks ago. Okay, I was late. Nobody's perfect. Kick a guy while he's down. I was busy! For years and years, this game was considered not only the best Zelda game, but one of the best games of all time. It still holds the highest spot on Metacritic, right next to Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 2. Oh, hell yeah, grind a rail, bro! So I think it's finally time to give this game the big boy treatment that I've given all the other Zelda games, which I've been a bit nervous to do because, while it's not my favorite, it was my first and it means so much to me. And I definitely have never talked about the game before in an amateur ASMR-esque-ish way. No, put the video down. I was 17. I didn't know what I was doing. Before we dive too far into the video, I think it'd be fun to go way back 25 years ago and see how it all began. Bam! It's the late 90s. Wow! I wonder what it's like to go on a plane without taking my shoes off. We truly are gaming in the Clinton years.
Psychiatrists say it's important to feel something when you kill.
Video games used to look like this. Ugh. And if you think that's sort of unimpressive, remember that just a bit before that, they used to look like this. Oh, hell no. Who invited this guy? Then everything changed when we hit the third dimension. For a hot minute, this was the Wild West, with a bunch of developers throwing everything at the wall trying to find out how the hell to make a 3D game. But then, in 1996, Nintendo came out swinging, showing everyone how to properly do it with their hit title, The Legend of Zelda. Mario 64. This game shattered the mind of gamers at the time, going from just running left and right to forward and back and up and down and maybe a little bit to the left but not all the way, just broke the brains of gamers. Sure, there had been a couple of 3D games before Mario 64, but I think this was the first one that really grabbed people's attention and showed them the future of the industry. Which I can only imagine is a once-in-a-medium shattering moment that changes everything. Because, say the line, Bart, I was barely in my dad's ballsack back then. Which is why when Ocarina of Time did come out, it made Mario 64 almost look like a fun little tech demo of Nintendo just dipping their toes into the 3D pool. I can't even imagine what it would have been like to go from a Link to the Past 2D world to then traversing a 3D space and being fully immersed in a way you could never comprehend prior. Which is why I find it so funny to go back to IGN's review from 1998, which they open with what I just said, the new benchmark is here. Looking back with all this perspective we are granted by time, the game does feel like a paradigm shift for the industry, one that IGN described as the perfect mixture of graphics, sound, and gameplay. That's a pretty good review. Where the review starts getting funny is in lines such as, to say that this game is huge is an understatement. Huge? I know we weren't working with much back then, but I'm pretty sure my toilet bowl is bigger than this entire game's map.
Alright, I'm cleaning it.
The graphics are incredible. Huh? And then one of the funniest lines is, the screams of the Dodongo are downright scary. What are you talking about? If you have time, I think it's a nice little blast to the past to give this review a read and get the perspective on why, to a critic at least, this was such a monumental hit and why they gave it the score that they did.
It has a little something for everyone.
In a way, I'm slightly jealous of all of these players. To experience these perfections of a medium that we take for granted in every game ever would have been insane, and they had no idea what the next 25 years of the industry had to offer. So many incredible games that just kept pushing gaming bit by bit, and also they hadn't even played Twilight Princess yet. Can you believe it? But who cares about the past? We are in the now, and I'm here to tell you now why this game is still so fun to this very day. And to talk about that, we have to discuss the... Usually when I talk about how a game plays, it's just simple stuff like, oh, you got these items, or it feels good to jump. But again, we gotta have that context. For a big chunk of players, this could have been their first time moving about with that funky Z-axis. Oh, hello. Who are you? So that's why so much of the design philosophy is about getting players used to this new way of playing a game. Kokiri Forest, your starting hometown, is sort of a mini tutorial in and of itself before you are put to the test with the dungeon a little later on. You walk outside your sick treehouse and there's a ladder you can climb down, or if you're cool, you can do a sick backflip. Yeah, Link is built like that. There's platforms to jump across, bridges to cross, an Indiana Jones-esque maze to crisscross. This entire area is really just a big playground, getting used to playing in this world in a low-stakes environment. Yippee! Two of the big features the game sported, which sound very boring when you read them out loud, were the context-sensitive actions and the camera system. It's interesting, I promise. The first was really cool for the time. This big blue button is the A button. And before this, I guess it was normal for players to think of one button performing one action, like swinging a sword or using an item. But here, depending on the context, that's why it's called that, it does different things. Stand in front of a sign and it does a little flip bam. Wanna push a block, flip bam. Wow, we're pushing. Push, push, it's almost there, push. It might sound confusing at first for a 1998 little kid brain, but it comes second nature so quickly. The second big bad innovation was the camera. Back in those Wild West days, 3D developers just did not know how to do cameras. Even Nintendo's first efforts with Mario is this frustrating mess where you press the camera button and it never quite gets where you want, always hitting an invisible... But Nintendo learnt from their mistakes and improved the camera in some really nifty ways. When you press the Z button, or the Z button, the camera always snaps behind you, which is a quick way for you to get a grasp on your surroundings and to readjust yourself. But what about when you're fighting an enemy? In a game like Mario 64, it's kinda hard to judge and be precise when jumping on your foes. So here, press that Z button again and the camera locks onto the enemy. Isn't that exciting? Guys, please, I promise this is cool, because this shows up in basically every game ever, even to this day. Elden Ring, the camera locks onto the enemy. FF7 Remake, oh look what the camera is focused right now. Pick one of the last 5 games you played and I assure you at least one of them will have this system in it. Once you notice it, you'll realize it's in so many games, regardless of if you activate it or not. I know I'm talking about a camera system from a video game, but it all started here and it's in every game ever and it's really important to the history of gaming. Please promise it's important! Please! I promise! A big chunk of this game's formula is swapping between dungeon spelunking to overworld stumping and thumping. And it's so fun! Every dungeon will give you a new item, which sort of acts like a key, which you can use in the overworld to unlock another piece of the giant puzzle. Like the hookshot lets you cross big gaps you couldn't before, or reach out of reach objects. The bombs let you blow up walls for secrets, and then the bomb shoes let you do that at a distance. Cool! And you use these to find every secret chest and piece of heart, which add up to make a new big heart that goes up to the top left corner. The items are used in such a fun way in and out of the dungeons, and I am a big fan of them. Good job. But the most important item of them all, arguably, sorry Megaton Hammer, you'll always be the shiny goat in my heart, is the Ocarina of Time. Yeah. That's what the game is named after, and Zelda is the guy you play as, and the legend is how cool it was when you got out of bed today. I'm so proud of you. Keep it up. The Ocarina of Time lets you play notes on it. But if you play the right notes, you can do cool stuff, like teleport across the world, or you can change the time of day, or call your horse. Yeah, by the way, you can ride a horse in this game, and it's sick. Except for when Link hits her to make her go faster. Oh my god, stop hitting her, Link, stop it! The way you progress through this game while getting more and more of these songs, which let you do more things, makes you feel like you are upgrading and leveling up and getting more powerful and skilled. Even if there isn't an arbitrary level number to tell you that you are. I know everyone already knows this and loves it, but the coolest quest for sure is learning the Song of Storms as an adult and being told by the guy that he learnt it 7 years prior from a kid. So you go back in time 7 years and teach him the song. But if you learnt it from him and he learnt it from some kid, who taught him the song in the I just bootstrap paradox. What do we do, Doctor? Ironically, the one thing that the Ocarina can't do is travel through time. Bit pointless, isn't it? It's actually just a big key that unlocks the door of time, which gives you access to the Master Sword, which lets you travel back and forth between when you were a stupid little kid to a grown-up adult. Ooh la la. I feel like he's collectively known as Adult Link, while Child Link is Child Link, or sometimes Young Link. But apparently Child Link is 10, which makes Adult Link not really an adult, but going back in time gives this game so much more depth. Suddenly you have these environments you once knew as a kid either completely changed or slightly different, with new people giving you new quests. Like when you're a kid, there is this cute, fun, and majestic castle that you have to sneak in and around and then frolic through the gardens of. Cool! But as an adult, it's been transformed into this gigantic demonic castle. Link is shocked. I'm shocked. That's crazy, man. How do you get it to flow? Damn, can I find you on the next Vogue video? Damn, man. It's a cool concept to make a smallish world feel bigger than it is that we haven't really seen since this game and A Link to the Past, and I'd love to see it done in a more modern approach. Oh, and A Link Between Worlds. I forgot about one. That one too. It's such a big world. What if the player gets overwhelmed? That is why they added a companion to help Link along in the fairy form of Navi. Growing up on the internet, all I would ever hear was the same repeated, overused, bland joke of, "Oh, Navi's so annoying, I wish I could just grab her and kill her and squeeze her." What's wrong with you? And two, I never really got that. On repeat playthroughs, yeah, it's annoying when she's like, "Hey, press A to open a door." But one, you can actually skip it if you're cool and fast enough. And two, apart from that, her intrusive moments are very few and far between. She's not even the most disruptive companion in the series. And here is what I do when she wants to give me help. You just ignore her, that's all you do, just don't press the button. Navi's just a little helpful guide who points you towards new quests. She's doing her best. Leave her alone. Leave Navi alone! One of the best uses of time travel is the quest on Lon Lon Ranch, which... Didn't I say all this in the Majora's Mask video? There might just be one common denominator here. What? No, that would be crazy. What? As a kid, you run into Malon, who is the daughter of this sleepy guy who owns Lon Lon Ranch. When you go to visit, you can find this quite grumpy farmhand by the name of Ingo. Yes, they're Mario and Luigi. Yes, you're so smart for being able to recognize Chris Pratt and Charlie Day at a distance. Good job. But when you go forward in time, Ingo has taken over the farm and become vaguely evil and stuff. You then have to beat him in this race, and then you get a horse, a Pona, and you jump over this wall and lets you jump over big fences like this one to this lake, and then you can go fishing even though it sucks, and this game is so good. Every little thing, be it the items or the songs or the time travel, unlocks another little thing that lets you do more things, and it's so addictive and fun to try and find every secret in this world. But it's hard to talk about the gameplay here without talking about the dungeons, because that is the meat on the bones of this game, really. Like, yeah, archery in the desert is fun, but it's just like, it's the chips with the gravy on the side. You get me? And while exploring the overworld and doing little funny mini games in Castletown are neat, the real juice of the game comes from... So when you're not galloping about the world, you're spending the other half of your time in the dungeons, which are these meticulously crafted labyrinthian mazes filled with puzzles and monsters and keys. So many keys! Oh my god, I have so many keys! I can't hold them all! Oh my god, I'm drowning! I'm drowning in keys! Help me! Dungeons existed in the previous games, of course, but adding that third axis really let the developers' minds explode with ideas on how to create mental challenges for the player to solve. What I find so interesting about the dungeons in this game is that they're not only teaching the player the gameplay rules and fundamentals of a Zelda game, which are then built on and on by the preceding dungeons, but they are also teaching players how to navigate through a 3D space. Take the first dungeon, inside the Deku Tree, which you are thrown into at a remarkably quick pace. You wake up, get a sword and shield, bam, you're fighting spiders. Arachnophobia! Upon walking in, you see a giant cobweb on the ground. Navi's interruption aside, you see that when you step on it, the webs begin to wobble slightly under your weight. But apart from that and a few monsters, there's nowhere else to go except up, quickly teaching players that in a 3D space, verticality is an option worth exploring. As you climb higher and higher, you get to try things such as jumping and climbing in a safe, controlled environment, which later on in the game will be second nature to you as you traverse over perilous objects. So you climb and climb until you get all the way to the top. And now, since there's no longer anywhere to go up, you must go down. These pillars all sort of point towards there being the idea that, hey, you should jump off it, just like you did safely on the first level. And since you know that web went a wobbly wobbly wah, it's something you should maybe try. And with a great leap, Link has enough momentum and terminal velocity to break through the cobwebs and go vertical in a different way. If it works, that is. I've seen so many playthroughs or streamers who play this for the first time and mess this bit up because they don't do it in the way the game precisely wants you to. And this game definitely does have some experimental jankiness that was refined out of the series as time went by. As you go through the dungeon more, the game continues to teach you the rules of this sandbox as well as how to navigate through a 3D space. Push boxes around, press buttons, light switches on fire with a Deku stick, open chests that go da da na 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 da da na na da 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 na. There's this cute gimmick in this dungeon where there are these Deku scrubs that you have to reflect their seed back at to be able to talk to them, which is a cute way to defeat them and also, again, an intuitive way of the game teaching you a mechanic like use your shield with R, please, use it, God, please. Then there is a room with 3 of them, but luckily a snitching member from earlier taught you that 23 is number 1, meaning the order is 2, 3, 1. And when you defeat them, this one apologizes to Queen Goma, their big baddie boss, for betraying them. But in the Japanese version, hear me out. So I learned Japanese for a little while and I played Ocarina of Time in Japanese, which is very cool in one hand because all my hard work and study, like, it manifested in the fact that I could understand this game a little bit and sort of get the gist of what was going on. But it had this weird effect where, because I've only grown up playing it in English, I would talk to characters and be like, why the fuck are you speaking Japanese? Anyways, this little Deku Scrub says Gomenasai, which is this cute little pun on the word Goma, which is the name of the boss, and Gomenasai, which means like a deep sorry. It's like just a cute pun that you wouldn't know if you hadn't played it in Japanese. And please don't leave me. I have no one else to talk to about this. Please, 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 please. And speaking of the bosses, they certainly leave a good impression. You walk into the boss room and the door slams shut behind you. But when you walk in, there's nothing there, except for this strange shifting sound and fog covering the floor. So you have to go into first person and look up at the ceiling. Again, the game brilliantly being like, hey, look around, third axis, idiot! It doesn't feel gimmicky at all, and it's the first of these sort of impressive, immersive moments that are throughout the whole game. Especially when your eyes lock on one eye, which falls down to the floor to reveal the form of this giant spider. And now it's time for a boss fight. One of the great things about the bosses is that they almost feel like a test. The dungeon is the coursework as you pick up new tricks and skills and a new item. And then the boss puts all those to the test to see if you've mastered it. So for example, in this fight against the parasitic armored arachnid Goma, it's a bit fancy to call yourself that, isn't it? When it's on the ground, you use the Deku nuts you got earlier to stun it so you can hit its eye. But when it goes back on the ceiling, what are you to do except get your slingshot out and hit it in the eye for it to come crashing back down so you can hit it again? It's such a fun introductory fight that becomes even more fun when you start glitching it. This game is very well made, but like many games, there are a lot of little quirks and bugs players have found over the years. One of my absolute favorites is the crouch stab glitch. If you'll bear with me for a second, basically every attack Link does has an attack value to tell the game how much damage the enemy is to take. For whatever reason, the crouch stab, done by crouching and then stabbing, doesn't have a set attack value, but just uses the value of whatever the last attack was. While the jump attack does 2 damage, it takes longer to do, with Link having to do this massive jump, while a crouch stab is like. So if you grab a Deku stick, which is more powerful than the Kokiri sword, and do a jump attack which has an attack value of 4, you can start rapid fire hitting enemies with insane power at the speed of light. And this glitch lets you decimate bosses in mere seconds, and it is so fun to do this. It's just one of those glitches in this game which I've sort of just incorporated into my every repeat playthrough, seeing how fast I can take down enemies and bosses, and it's just so fun. Thank you for the glitch, Nintendo. Love you. Mwah. Earlier in the dungeon, there is this one puzzle where you're supposed to dive down and press a button, which lowers the water so you can safely travel across this platform without hitting this big spike, because that would hurt. Ouch! But I never really liked this puzzle, and the timing always bothered me as a kid. So I learnt this speedrun trick where if you run at the spiky pole, it'll send you flying back onto the platform. But when you stand up, you're invincible for a second or two, letting you walk right through it. Am I a genius or what? Anyways, back to the boss, and it's defeated! The game rewards you with a heart container, adding 1 heart to your measly 3 heart health bar, and a way out of the dungeon. Yay! And basically, that's the formula for every dungeon from now until 2011? Walk in, suss it out, explore a bit, get an item halfway through, usually after a mini boss, use that item which has recontextualized the dungeon you just walked through, get to the boss, get a new heart, rinse and repeat. It sounds like it should be boring, but there's a reason it took them 5 games before they felt the need to change them up, and even then they only did so slightly. Every dungeon builds upon the last in terms of complexity, while always delivering a completely different, unique feeling, atmosphere and tone. It becomes so exciting to do the bits of the story that lead up to a new dungeon and taking those first steps inside and wondering what you're going to explore next. Like you go from this very mystical, almost dream-esque dungeon with the Deku tree, full of wood and flora and fauna and insects and metal bars in this sewer even though he's a tree, and okay, that doesn't make any sense. To the next dungeon, which is in a volcanic cavern full of dinosaurs and laser shooting robots for some reason. What? Again, none of this makes any sense. Now that the game knows you can do this, it throws so much more danger at you, like lava and massive heights and bats that burn your shield. Oh god damn it, you Fuck! I think Dodongo's Cavern is a good next step up. It takes what you learned from the last dungeon, plus a thing or two you learn on the journey between the two, and incorporates it into some new fun but fair challenges. The first 3 dungeons are sort of big tutorials really for the rest of the game. Well, maybe tutorial is a harsh term, it's more like a slide that sort of eases you into the rest of the game. And I don't know what tutorial from any other game ends with you throwing a bomb into a dinosaur's mouth. Oh my god, he's rolling! Of the 3 tutorial dungeons, the worst is definitely Lord Jabu Jabu's belly. Oh! You just walk in and immediately the vibe is off. Every dungeon in this game is so excellent at nailing its atmosphere. From its visual aesthetics to the mise-en-scene choice of objects and enemies to the always deliciously ambient track. It's one of the reasons every dungeon in this game feels so memorable and unique 25 sets of 12 months later. But Lord Jabu Jabu's belly sounds like he went to the dentist high. What's croaking in the background? What is that? And the N64's low quality textures do not do a great job at conveying the squishy meat and muscle inside this giant fish. What's worse is that the gimmick of this dungeon is that you must personally escort Princess Ruto around from room to room. She's a very brash, rude, spoiled brat, far contrasting the elegant scene by the human princess we met earlier. What did Miyamoto mean by that? But it just means there is a lot of walk in, put her down, do the puzzle, or kill the enemy, pick her up. Oh, you left her behind, how dare you! Rah! Mix that in with a weak boss and an annoying octopus and you've got a bad dungeon. And it's quite funny how any dungeon that is water related is weak. But like I said, those are the baby dungeons for a baby boy in training. The next 5 are all for adult Link, and here's really where the game gets in its stride. Like the first 3 are good, they're not bad at all, they are really fun, but then you suddenly get thrown into the Forest Temple. From the second you walk in, everything feels off, in a way that the child dungeons never even got close to. You hear what sounds like rattling bones before the synth comes in, smearing you in this sense of mystery before this chanting eases in and out of the mix. It's one of the most bizarre compositions of the entire game. You never quite know if it's mystical or frightening or soothing. Ah! A wolf! What the hell, man? I was explaining the ambience of your crib. Why would you interrupt me, man? That was so rude. Dick. Despite being called the Forest Temple, it's more of a lost, overgrown castle than a haven of trees. The concrete walls ooze with fog, surrounded by outside courtyards inhabited with fiends. It's kinda spooky, but there's something so enchanting about it. Every room has a chill to it, or feels slightly uneasy. Like this hallway that slightly twists as you go through it, which you can then straighten out by using your bow and arrow. But even after doing that, you'll still be visited by ghastly hands that drop down and grab you, which freaked me out so much as a kid. It's not perfect, there is a block puzzle, which is whatever, but this is just one of the most bewitching dungeons in the entire series. You've got this spooky vibe and ghosts that hide in paintings, and the whole thing feels a bit like the castle from Eco, and it's just great. And it all leads up to one of the coolest boss fights in the game. You walk up the stairs to this circular room full of paintings. Dipshit, when you have an art gallery, it's supposed to be lots of different paintings, not just one identical one 10 times in a row. Unless, of course, you're doing a meta commentary on the lack of creativity in the field, which, of course, I've heard that creak many times before. You turn around and see Ganondorf, oh my god, who then pulls off his face. Ugh. And instead, it's this bony skeletal puppet, known simply as the evil spirit from beyond, Phantom Ganon. He runs off into the paintings and the two of them start to run at you, and you have to wait until the last second to see which one is an illusion and which one is going to come out and give you a little bite. Shoot a few arrows into him and then it's time for a game of tennis. It's an old joke, yeah, but this back and forth of this bit of electrical power is so tense and exciting and fun, and it's just the ribbon bow thingy that ties together this incredible dungeon. Really good stuff, good job! We then move on to the Fire Temple, which requires some new drip that is so hot to keep up with the hot air around you. Overall, I think the Fire Temple is good, but it's also kind of funny. The entire thing is basically going through this volcano-themed maze, doing humanitarian aid by rescuing a bunch of Gorons who are locked away. Wait, humanitarian Goronitarian aid. They're just so funny looking. Look at them. So nonchalant about being captive. And then when you do free them, they give you a clue like, "Thank you for saving me, but did you know if you hold down the spacebar, you can move the cursor to the individual letter? Okay, bye." I mean, it's helpful, but A bit weird. The next dungeon is the Water Temple, and it's so infamous for being absolute dog shit. But let's be fair for a second and ask objectively, is it? Yeah, this shit sucks. Coming as no surprise from the guy who hates the Lakebed Temple, I think the Water Temple deserves all the slack it gets. I don't really know what I can say that isn't repeating what you've all heard 1,000 times before, but anyways, here we go. Having to go to the menu to swap between your normal boots and your iron boots that let you sink down into the water is really annoying. But it's only the sprinkling on top of the cake of reasons that this place isn't fun. I think every other dungeon does a really good job at being laid out in a way where you almost have a grasp of everything. One of the most fun bits of a dungeon is when you get a key and you go, ooh, okay, I can probably use that in this room I passed a while ago, and maybe that will lead to somewhere I can use this new item. They're all labyrinth mazes, but they're not of the sky-high hedge I have no idea where I've been variety. While the Water Temple, on the other hand, is so confusing in its layout. You just constantly turned around and lost, and where am I going? I miss my family, it's been weeks! The big kicker for this is that you can change the water level of the dungeon at these certain points. One, there isn't really any markings on the plaque that tells you what level the water will be raised to, so you just have to remember which one raises it to what and how to get there. And two, it isn't always clear if raising the level means you need to explore on this new level or if you need to raise it at all. And then the entire dungeon feels like you're going into rooms for one thing and popping right back out. In and out, in and out. Boots, no boots, boots, no boots. Raise the water, lower the water. Raise the water, lower the water. Boots, no boots, in and out. And you're always just so lost. People say the saving grace is the mini boss of the dungeon. You walk into this room with an endless misty horizon. After you cross to the other side of the room, nothing happens. But if you have a sharp eye, you'll realize as you crossed over the island, your shadow disappeared from beneath your feet. When you turn around, there he is, standing, waiting, menacingly. Dark Link. And then the fight is shit. You're just swinging and he blocks all your moves and you gotta pull out the hammer and it's just not fun at all. And then the dungeon is topped off by a really awful boss fight too, and god, this one sucks. I know it's been shat on in every conceivable way for 25 years, and I'm sure it will be for another 25, but I think it's well deserved. It's the only one in the game that I would say is straight up bad and just not fun. Every time I get up to it, I just follow a video guide because I cannot be bothered getting the headache that would come from trying to solve it myself. It's just confusing and disorientating and the vibes are off, and I reckon it would be really cold in there and you get a weird sniffle and a cough and just no, not for me. It is funny Bruto thinks you're engaged though, so that's cool. I miss my wife, guys, so much. Next up, we have a sort of two-parter, the Spirit Temple and the Shadow Temple. Now, they are two separate dungeons, do not get that confused, but there is an interesting sort of debate around them. Which order are you supposed to play them in? Every dungeon before this requires an item from the previous one to unlock the next one, a rule that is broken here, because the Mirror Shield, the item from the Spirit Temple, is used approximately fuck all times in the Shadow Temple. And the Hover Boots, well, I wish they were never used at all. I hate floating around. Now, if you pop open the menu and look at the list of medallions, you see the order the game presents is Forest, Fire, Water, Spirit, and then Shadow. So that implies you should go to the Spirit Temple first. But to get to the Spirit Temple, you need the item called the Lens of Truth, which lets you go and see things you could never see before. To get the Lens of Truth, you have to go to Kakariko Village, which is where the Shadow Temple is located, and then go through the bottom of the well mini dungeon, which may as well be an entree to the Shadow Temple with how gross and scary it is. And is that blood? I'm queasy and faint of heart, don't show me that, I'll faint! So the little enigma comes from the fact that, yeah, the list in the menu says Spirit then Shadow, but the way the lead up to the dungeon is structured maybe implies that you should do Shadow first. Quite interestingly, they structurally are a little similar by having the first part of the dungeon, or entree to the dungeon, make you time travel back to your child self to complete it. Really started digging home the themes of this game in a more bite-sized chunk, especially in the Shadow Temple where it's like, everything is scary when you're a kid, ah! But it's easier to cope when you're an adult and the world around you feels more doable, but we'll get to all of that later. Patience! On the other hand though, the Spirit Temple has the very last appearance of Kapora Gabora, which kind of feels like a little nice footnote way to send off the childhood part of your journey as a hero before you go and take on the big baddie. And just to stoke a little more coal on the fire, every map entrance in the game has a corresponding index code. Basically, the game can be like, yeah, we're loading up room 0028, and then it knows to load inside Jabba Jabba's belly from the front door. Mouth, whatever. The Shadow Temple's index number is 0037, while the Spirit Temple's is 0082. Now, this could mean it's supposed to take place after the Shadow Temple, but that doesn't hold a lot of weight when areas before both dungeons have higher index numbers, like various entrances to Hyrule Field, Gerudo Fortress, Lake Hylia, and more. So these numbers could just be arbitrary, or maybe they correspond to when the map was finished in development. And then, if we look at the leaked debug ROM from 2005 of the GameCube's Master Quest, we can see a map select screen. If we go down to the 75th option, we find the Shadow Temple, and then down a bit more at option number 81, we have the Spirit Temple. Some more evidence that the Shadow Temple was supposed to be first? Well, maybe not really. The Fire Temple, which is the 5th dungeon of the game, comes at 77. The Water Temple is at 79, both between the Spirit and Shadow Temples. And the highest the list goes before entering into exclusive maps left only on the debug ROM are a bunch of grotto maps, so it's not like this list was about exclusive linearity, or was ever anything that should have ever been seen by the public. Sorry Nintendo! Don't sue me, Onoma, please, I love you! Snug boy, you're just listing off numbers from the game's code. Why does any of this matter? Well, because it's 25 years later and it's one small fun thing people are still debating to this day. Debates that are full of little bits of evidence or story analysis on why one fits better than the other, and many anecdotes on people's playthroughs as kids and which one they did first and why. It's such a fun little quirky discussion, and it's one of the special things about this game that persists to this day. Personally, I prefer to do the Spirit Temple first, mainly just because I love the dungeon so much that I want to play it sooner, and also because for me, I think Link's dungeon spelunking journey ending with the creepiest, most unsettling dungeon just feels climactically right. Like he's really conquered his childhood fears as an adult. But getting to the Spirit Temple is really fun. You have to travel to Gerudo's Fortress, which you can only get to by either using the long shot you just got at the last temple, or by jumping over the bridge with Epona. Yeehaw! The thing with the Gerudo is that they are a race made up entirely of women, with only one man being born every 100 years. Unluckily for us, the man that was born last time was Ganondorf. Oh guys, come on, can you not do better than that? Also real quick, it always bothers me when people are like, oh, they're all women, how can they get pregnant? Magic. It's a game where you can teleport by playing a clay pot. You can set a room on fire by doing yoga, and these people get turned into spiders. For some reason. You don't think two people who are deeply in love with another can't have their love magically manifest into a pregnancy which they can both raise together in the next chapter of their lives? You are so human biology brain coded for real. It's pissing me off. Anyways, even though I just defended them, they've thrown me into jail for being a man. Zelda goes, whoa, women are taking over? Link is transgender? What this results in is you sneaking around the fortress stealth style, knocking out guards and trying to free these tradesmen who were working on fixing that bridge you jumped across and were unfairly imprisoned for being a bloke, I think. Is that why? Unluckily for you, some of the Gerudo spot you and you have to engage in a sword fight. They are one of the only human enemies in the game that you get to fight one-on-one in a sword duel. And because of that, I always felt that their fights were really memorable. And also as a kid, the whole woman-only society thing didn't really register on me. But as an adult, oh my god, I would do anything to be locked up by them. Please, I will commit minor tax fraud or jaywalking. Lock me up, please. I will do the dishes, I'll mop your floors, I'll cook your food, I'll vacuum the desert sand out of your rooms, I'll paint your nails, we can watch the Barbie movie together, I can hype you up when you buy a new outfit. Please, I will do anything to be there. And unlike the last man that you had, I won't try to kill the entire world and then enslave it. So please, please, please! Eventually, they are impressed by your thieving, sneaking skills and let you wander around freely and point you in the direction of the Spirit Temple. One ghosty, sandy, doony, deleted scene from Return of the Jedi trek later, you finally arrive. I feel like this dungeon has one of the most impressive entrances. It feels like something that you could see in real life, with that giant, corroding statue overlooking you with such a grand presence. And also very smartly, that statue actually comes in importance later, but we'll get to that later. Again, with the patience, man, just just chill. Inside the dungeon, you run into Noboru, a Gerudo thief. After checking that you don't work for Ganondorf, she asks that you fit through this hole because you're a tiny little kid, and look for the silver gauntlets, which you can't even wear because you're a tiny little kid, and you have a stupid name apparently. God, you're so rude. So then you go through the dungeon, and it's really engaging because you're playing as a kid in a dungeon again. But unlike the last time you did that, the game treats you competently now. So you're in the kid body with less attack damage and a smaller arsenal of tools, but you're fighting against adult enemies and doing puzzles that aren't just burn a cobweb or push a block. Okay, you do still push a block, but that's more of just a this game thing. Alright, anyways. Anyway, you do more puzzles, fight the best enemy in the game, the Iron Knuckle, who is this big tough guy clang tight in a truck, massive iron armor, swinging around this heavy-hitting axe at a scary speed. But lucky for you, he's very slow until, oh god, he's running! Then you walk outside and guess what? You're on the hands of that statue. Anyways, big plot twist. Wow, the second you get the silver gauntlets, Noboru is kidnapped by the two witches who run the place. Wait, so what do you do now? Well, if you remember, Noboru said that we couldn't wear the silver gauntlets because we're a kid. So you gotta go back to the Temple of Time, go forward 7 years to become an adult, go back to the Spirit Temple, and then complete the rest of the dungeon as an adult. It's so cool! Such an interesting concept for a dungeon that isn't done again ever? Just walking through the doors you walked in 7 years ago, but also like half an hour ago, now more physically mature and strong, just clicks so well in my brain. It's so unique and fun, and mixed with the vibes of the place and the music, it just makes for one of the most memorable sections of the entire game. And you can hookshot onto the temple's boobs. What? I swear to God you could do that. When you get closer to the boss room, you once again fight an Iron Knuckle, but this time its head comes off to reveal that he was actually Noboru, but under mind control, which gives this implication that every single Iron Knuckle we've seen before and after are all trapped Gerudo women enslaved to do evil deeds. It's such a small little detail that doesn't get all the attention in the world, yet is so endlessly fascinating to me. And also, this cutscene appears as a demo after the title screen for some reason. It's a bit random, isn't it? Then you get a cool boss that is about reflecting ice and fire damage at the respective enemy, and then bing bang bomb, you're done. And like, can you blame me for wanting to do this one before the Shadow Temple? It's just so good, so good. I want to kiss this dungeon, print it off, stick it to a wall and kiss it. Yeah, I'm not afraid of a non-conformable relationship. The Shadow Temple, in contrast, is dark. Literally. Every corner is gloomy and grubby and rank, and even the music is more about creepy, spooky, dark vibes than a hummable melody. And while it is going for horror, it never particularly scared me as a kid.
Did Nintendo know that this game is E for everyone?
Shut up! It's a sentient larder fat wiggling its way slowly across a room. Shut up! You're in your 30s now. If you want to see something scary, pay your mortgage. What I think is more interesting about the dungeon is that it's based on trickery and illusions. Before the dungeon, at the bottom of the well, you find the Lens of Truth, which, as mentioned earlier, lets you see things the naked eye cannot. And while it is used for fun in that mini dungeon, especially in the ways it tricks you before you even have the item, oh god damn it! It's nothing compared to what the actual dungeon does. You go through rooms and rooms full of nothing but fake walls. The floor beneath you will often be a trick. Compared to the start of the game where you were being taught simple things like how to create cause and effect to progress to a next room, here you really are tested as a master of the gameplay's grammar, literally searching for invisible enemies and objects needed to progress. Overall, it's a fun dungeon, especially when you go on this cool boat. Whoa, I'm fighting a skeleton! But I do think as the final dungeon, it is maybe a bit disappointing, especially when it ends with this weird hand drum guy. This shit sucks. And that is all the dungeons, all 8 of them. There are also some optional and not so optional mini dungeons like the Ice Cavern and the Gerudo Training Ground, which nets you some nice ice arrows. Ooh. And I know some people like to count Ganon's Castle as one, but that never really felt right in my head, so I don't know, bestie. Sorry. I know we spent a big chunk of this video on the dungeons, but they are the big set pieces of this game. You really can simplify the formula to get item, go to dungeon, get new item, defeat boss, explore world, and then go to the next dungeon, get new item, defeat boss, explore world, and then go to the next dungeon, so on and so forth. And while exploring the world and doing its multitude of side quests is fun in its own right, the dungeons are the meat of this game. Shigeru Miyamoto based the original Zelda on his childhood adventures of exploring rural areas of Kyoto, which is such a well-known fact that even Jimmy fucking Fallon knows it.
I know Miyamoto made this because growing up outside of Kyoto.
And I think they captured that feeling in a 3D space for the first time perfectly. You explore this grand, for the time, overworld until you find a hidden away mossy temple or a stone maze sunken at the bottom of a lake or a haunted mysterious cavern that sends chills up your spine. Kind of. Are they the best dungeons Zelda ever did? No. Majora's Mask, Twilight Princess, and Skyward Sword have a bunch of dungeons that are way better, building on the foundation of what was started here while doing their own unique things too. But not these two games. Also, by the way, this game sort of disappointed me a lot, and I was gonna make a video about it, but then I sort of got busy and forgot it. Do you guys want to see that still? If not, that's okay too. If you don't, that's cool, but if you do, let me know. Thanks, cool, okay, bye, thanks. But Ocarina of Time's dungeons still hold up in the boxing ring 25 years later. The atmosphere and puzzles and the way they unravel as you journey throughout the game are still just really good. And if you guys are interested, here is my ranking of them. The water temple is dead last. It's sunk to the bottom with the iron boots. Inside Jabba Jabba's belly is not that much fun really, and I find it drag to get through on repeat playthroughs. Dodongo's cavern is fun, but nothing groundbreaking. Although I do like this bit where you cause a chain reaction and the N64 grinds to 5 frames per second. The Shadow Temple is so spooky and grimy, and even though you're just hovering around the place, it's still a blast. I love rescuing Gorons and running away from walls of flames in the Fire Temple. Inside the Deku Tree is such a phenomenal introduction to not only this game, but to learning how to explore a 3D puzzle action adventure for the next 2.5 decades. I'm not going to spend any more time talking about how good the Spirit Temple and its unique way of progressing it is, so let me just clarify that you get a mirror that reflects sunlight that looks so cool. God, I love this game. And then, of course, the Forest Temple. It's just so good. It's oozing with atmosphere, it's creepy in a very unique way, its gimmick is very fun, it's kind of weird, the boss is great, the music is fantastic, and you get to talk to your childhood friend at the end of it, and oh my god, I haven't even talked about any of the stuff that comes in between, and a lot of it's quite good. I've spent so long talking about half of this game when I haven't even talked about all the stuff that comes in between, and a lot of it is quite good. So without further ado, let's talk about the... As a kid, I thought falling into this world was a marvelous treat. It set my young imaginative brain on fire as I engaged with the narrative and the characters that inhabited this world. As I grew older and I started playing and watching and reading a lot more things, I sort of looked back on Ocarina of Time as a game with a very shallow story that was just there to service the gameplay. And now that I've grown more older, I've swung back around. Oh my god, this game's story is really good! I'll tap the other sign once again. Zelda games aren't Shakespeare. Except maybe this one is. After the game's quiet introduction and one quick nightmare, we introduced to the Great Deku Tree, the custodian of the Kokiri, who is in the middle of talking to Navi the fairy.
Well, I don't know why he's talking to a tree.
Dost thou sense it? The climate of evil descending upon this realm. Yeah, it's not exactly an iambic pentameter, but they are using this old English-esque language which never appears in the series ever again. And it's just one character with one slightly different type of speech that makes him feel more grand and important, and it's such a nice detail that I've always loved. I think a really big undersung hero of the game's development is Dan Osen, the localizer who is credited as the English scriptwriter, although you may know him best as the voice of
The last Metroid is in captivity. The galaxy is at peace.
He had so much character and flavor throughout this entire game, with his words really bringing these low polygonal people off the screen and to life. People like him, especially from this era, are really not highlighted enough in their efforts, and are usually just yelled at by weird anime fans on Twitter. Ugh. So I just want to say, thanks Dan, your writing is sick. As more and more Zelda games came out, one of the biggest criticisms they faced was the lack of voice acting. While this didn't seem amiss on the N64, once you got to Twilight Princess and especially Skyward Sword, it was hard not to feel like something was missing. I think for ages Nintendo were just stuck on how to implement it well, and were quite possibly scared of making that jump. And while they eventually did add some in, to mixed results, I think one thing they sort of lost was the legend aspect of the title. Something Ocarina of Time nails is the feeling of this being a legend, a tale, a myth, a great story that you have to read with your own two eyes. Ooh, get that interrupting nerve. The way the Deku Tree uses flowery language like malevolent forces, the boy without a fairy, the youth whose destiny it is, and then casually sprinkles in bits of lore that are never addressed again, makes this feel like a rich world full of a long history, even in these first opening bits. This first cutscene or two, and then this little monologue dialogue perfectly set up the magical tone that is Ocarina of Time's world. Now, Ocarina of Time is about time, believe it or not. But that never really clicked properly with me until I was an adult. It properly starts off with Link being called to the Deku Tree. He goes out into his whimsical tree hut village, meets his smiling best friend, and with a sword and shield in hand, he gets on his way. But the Deku Tree hits you with the first big shock. A vile climate pervades the land. I have been cursed. The first crack to your childhood begins. But it's okay, we'll stop the Deku Tree's curse and everything will go back to normal. So you go through the dungeon, spick spack spock, and the curse is lifted. We did it! Time to go back to the way things were. The Deku Tree then begins to tell Link of who placed this curse upon him. An evil man shrouded in flames, looking for the divine relic full of the power of the gods, the Triforce. Suddenly we're shown the creation of the world, how the three goddesses came together, using their power, courage, and wisdom to create the land and cultivate it with life, leaving behind only the Triforce in their wake. The Great Deku Tree strictly warns Link that thou must never allow the desert man in black armor to lay his hands on the sacred Triforce, which is a lot of heavy stuff to be telling a kid right after he saved your life. Except he didn't. Because of that curse, my end is nigh. I was doomed before you started. The Great Deku Tree's final wish is for us to leave the forest, go to the castle and meet with the princess. And then he just dies. His color warbles gray, his final leaves fall, and then that's it. The Deku Tree is dead. The game immediately cuts back to the cheery whimsical music of Kahiri Forest, but the air feels different. Things aren't the same as they were, and Link doesn't belong here anymore. He has to leave and begin his quest. Just on his way out, Link runs into his best friend Saria, who catches him with a, "Oh, you're leaving." It catches him completely off guard, and with no music and only the ambient sounds of the forest birds, the scene is devastatingly melancholic. Ocarina of Time, in a lot of ways, is about growing up, and this moment here is the beginning of the end of Link's childhood. And even somehow on the N64, you can see the sadness in Saria's eyes. Her best friend is leaving her, as she always deep down knew he would. She gives him her ocarina, a parting gift for him to remember her by, and then we cut to this emotionally cold white shot. Because there is fuck all characterization of Link in the game, it's hard to know exactly what he's thinking when he stares back at his friend before turning to run away. But I like to think that he didn't know what to say, as it was just too sad, which we feel as the shot dollies in on her impressively sad face and then out on the exit of the woods. This scene has stuck with me all my life and has only gotten more profound as I've gotten older. There's something about the surprisingly somber tone that they nailed that has always left me. Oh, alright. Okay, it's time for our great big adventure! Woo! Into the great big world of Hyrule. We are ready to take our first steps into it before— Fuck you! I hate this owl. Sorry, I know it's such an overplayed joke and everyone hates him, but oh my god, you don't have to tell us what we already know. You don't have to be so quirky with it. You don't have to mix up your yes and no prompts like it's a Paul Dano riddle. Gameplay-wise, story-wise, progression-wise, this guy sucks! Goodbye! Anyways, one thing I love is as you explore the world en route to your destination, by the time you get to Hyrule Castle, it's night, and suddenly monsters spring up from the ground that you have to tirelessly defend yourself from. If the cursed Deku Tree wasn't a big enough indication already, then you know now that growing up is hard, and the world is scary and fierce. But eventually, the morning does come, paraded in by the oh so ever sweet and comforting notes of a flute. And then we get to enter Hyrule Castle Town. It's such a merry and lively bunch of shoppers, merchants, and all sorts of extravagant characters. To be quite honest, I'm really bad at talking to NPCs when I play games. I usually just sort of rush through and do the main story essentials. But in this playthrough, I really took the time to try and talk to as many of them as I could. And the characters in this area and this entire game are so fun and quirky, even if a lot of them are like, wow, I heard of this interesting thing somewhere else, haha, go do it. This one guy says the reason Hylians have long ears is to supposedly be able to hear the goddesses, which is cool. Then there's this couple who won't get a room. Ugh. And then there's this guy. Man, I am so bored. Things would sure be more interesting if there were more troubles in the world. Dude, what the fuck is your problem? Hyrule Castle, on our way, but the gates are locked. Rude. My tax rupees are going to waste on this giant affluent castle and soldiers, and what do we get for it? Huh? Huh? One really cool thing about this part is that you can sneak past either of two ways. What I always did as a kid is just climb this vine and sneak around. And I didn't always know this, but you can just bribe this guy with money and he lets you through. That is so funny and great, and something the series never really did again until Breath of the Wild. Anyway, sneak, 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 this statue should have a penis, sneak, 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 and bam, we're in the castle courtyard. I adore this section so much because it's just, it's everything this game is about. A beautiful blue sky overlooks this gorgeous garden courtyard that feels so serene and peaceful and carefree. You walk up to this girl, a musical run plays as she shockingly turns around and asks, Qui es-tu? Wait, what? No, sorry, wrong language. Who are you? This is the princess of the Kingdom of Hyrule, Zelda. Yeah, I lied before. This is actually who the game is named after. She immediately knows you, which we've talked about 100 times at this point, and asks if you are from the forest and possess the spiritual stone. I love the game because it tries to give you role-playing options sometimes, which are always just yes or no, and like, what if we say no? Is she just gonna be like, oh, okay. Get the fuck out, God! Zelda begins to tell you of her dream that showed dark storm clouds billowing over the land of Hyrule, which is very similar to someone else's dream of late. But in her dream, a shining ray of light turned into a figure of a boy and a fairy, showing a ray of hope. She then points through the window and says that the other element for my dream, the dark clouds, I believe they symbolize that man in there. Link takes a peek and sees Ganondorf, who we have been told is quite evil. I mean, look, here he is riding in fire. But here he is politely kneeling below the off-screen king. Zelda believes that Ganondorf is coming to bring a great era of evil to Hyrule, but being a kid, she is ignored by her father. And with that, the stage is set. On this peaceful, beautiful day in this gorgeous courtyard, two hopeful but naive young kids set out to save the world before it was ever in danger. One of my favorite pieces of art from the game is this drawing of Link and Zelda as kids. It's got such a carefree feeling to it, and I love how the background has this water painted style look to it, which compared to other pieces of art from the game is really unique, and makes it feel like a warm, happy, hazy memory from long ago. Also, did you know if you shoot this window, a guy throws a bomb at you? Dude, what the fuck is your problem? We have no time to think about any of that. We have an adventure to go off onto. Get the 3 spiritual stones to open the door of time in the Temple of Time with the Ocarina of Time, and get to the Triforce before Ganondorf can. So you do just that. You go up to Death Mountain and become friends with the Gorons, go off to Zora's Domain where a bratty young princess gets engaged to us. I don't think Link is into fishes. Oh no, he is just only the boy ones! And that's it, our quest is done. However, when we approach Hyrule Castle, things don't seem quite right. When we get to the drawbridge, thunder cracks the sky as prophesized dark clouds loom overhead. The drawbridge comes down as a white horse comes speeding past. Wait, haven't we seen this before? And oh wait, it's our dream! Except that Zelda and Impa, her guardian, and she just threw something in the water, and if we turn around, there he is!
Ganondorf.
Something I've always loved about big-eared Ganondorf in this game is that he isn't a one-dimensional evil monster. He is an evil guy, yeah, but one full of confidence and ego. When Link draws his blade, standing his ground between Ganondorf and the princess, he quite respectfully says, "You've got guts, kid," before blasting us to the ground. The scene ends with one long zoom in on Link's face, which I have no idea what they were trying to say here. Maybe Link is like, damn, alright, that guy's cooked. Alright, now this is tough. But none of that matters. Yeah, he is chasing after Zelda, but that's exactly what we want. As he is being led astray, Link grabs the Ocarina of Time, learns a song from Zelda, and heads into town. But what exactly just happened? We weren't given a great lot of context. And Hyrule Castle Town is as jolly as ever, except if you go into this back alleyway, you can find a wounded soldier. He recognizes you and stutters as he tells you his final message. Ganondorf betrayed the king, and the only reason Zelda escaped unharmed was because Impa sensed danger and rushed them out of there. And with the final warning of what to do next, the soldier just dies in front of you in broad daylight. Oh my god. But again, I don't know why everyone is so down and bummed when we've won. We've saved the day barely before it even begun. We march up and into the Temple of Time, open the big fancy door, and things only begin to expand. Inside isn't the sacred realm, but a legendary blade in a pedestal, the Master Sword. Link pulls it out, and here, definitively, his happy, carefree childhood ends. No more premonitions or bad omens or threats of dark clouds and cracks of thunder and lightning. Now it's over, because we lost. Upon pulling the Master Sword, we are greeted by Ganondorf, who manipulated us the entire time into playing his cards. He knew we were the ones unlocking the door and just waited around for us to do all the hard work for him. We led him straight to the gates of the Sacred Realm, and with that, the Triforce. And now he can rule the whole world. The bright and simple optimistic naivety of children condemned the whole world to its destruction. We lost. Or we almost did. Link soon wakes up inside the Sacred Realm and is greeted by Roru, one of the ancient sages, who was like,
I'm an old man. Anyway, you're not a kid anymore.
Smack, bam, shock. I wasn't being all wishy-washy with my words. Our childhood is over because Link is now an adult. Yes, we were the worthy one chosen by the goddess to be the hero incarnate, but we just weren't old enough to be fit for it. So it trapped us within for 7 years until we were ready to fight. And in those 7 years, Ganondorf has turned the peaceful world of Hyrule into a ravage-filled land full of monsters and evil. Ocarina of Time was for so many people a simple tale about a boy who can travel back and forth between time to fight an evil guy and save a damsel in distress. As I've grown up from a starry-eyed kid to a rent-paying, bill-slaving adult, the story and the themes and the text and the subtext and yeah, even the dom text have grown on me so much. It's about time. Yeah, I know, duh, but more importantly, the scarcity of it and the preciousness of youth in contrast to the scary uncertainty of adulthood. I'm about to turn 22. Sorry, this took a while to make. I'm actually 22 now, which I'm sure for a bunch of people watching is young. I'm younger than this game, but I feel like I've entered this period of my life where things have never been this hard before, as I've come to the realization that those years are never coming back. All the times my parents would say, savor your youth, or once you turn 21, it all flashes by, and I'd be like, what are you talking about? I'm beginning to get it. And without being too mopey, life is really hard. There's no rulebook or guide, and every day I'm constantly feeling like I'm treading water just to survive. And so it doesn't feel like a simple coincidence to me the way Hyrule Castletown harshly juxtaposes between a fun, jolly, bright, and cheerful hub of excitement and wonder as a child, and then a scary, desolate, and horrifying ravaged place as an adult, with enemies that paralyze you in fear as you don't know what to do. Or how challenges that were easy and fun as a kid only get harder and more complex as you grow up. Or how you realize people in all their varied complexities are just trying to survive, one day after the next, 1 year after the other. When you're a kid, every problem seems black and white or easy to fix, and as an adult, you realize you can't just fix things with a click of your fingers. It's not to suggest that there is no point living without hope as you grow older, because of course there is. There is still so much fun and adventure and wonder to be had at any stage in your life. But once those first years are gone, they don't ever come back, and they are precious. The point is driven home even further by the character of Sheik, who turns up before each dungeon to teach you a new magic song, and as a kid that meant me going, oh my god, you're so boring, I don't care, skip, I don't care, skip. But again, grow a bit older, and their poetic musings carry some surprising weight. The flow of time is always cruel. Its speed seems different for each person, but no one can change it, which is already a bar in and of itself. But then they followed up immediately with the slam dunk of, a thing that doesn't change with time is a memory of younger days, which just hits like a truck now. None of this landed on my head as a kid. I was like, okay, either do your cool ninja moves like I saw you do in Smash Brothers, or shut up! But at this point in my life, as I've fully exited being a young adult, those words ring truer than they ever had. I feel like all these points come together with such a great sense of poignancy with this dungeon in particular. The Kokiri are a race that never stopped being kids, yet Link grew up. What's up with that? Well, you find out shortly after the Forest Temple that Link was never actually a Kokiri boy, but a Hylian who was left at the steps of the Great Deku Tree by his dying mother, who fled from the last Hylian civil war. But none of that matters really, except for this visual. Link as an adult, staring his childhood friend, his childhood right in the face, as he has to deal with the responsibilities of being an adult and being the hero to save everyone. I don't know why she looks high though. Sheik is a mysterious character who keeps showing up again and again, and each time with a new bit of wisdom. At the entrance to the Fire Temple, they talk about friendship and how it grows stronger through time. At the Ice Cavern, they say, time passes, people move, like a river's flow, it never ends. Right after casually being like, yeah, a bunch of the Zoras are frozen under the ice, ripperoni bro. You problem, Link. Sucks to be them. After you beat the Water Temple, there is a moment where Sheik gazes upon Link, and it's hard to say again because of the crummy N64 textures, but it seems to be a look of someone who knows Link more than the handful of times that they've met so far. The next time we meet Sheik, they go, whoa, 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 whoa. So nothing very thematic to point out there. At the Spirit Temple, Sheik once again shows up, this time without being flailed around like a Gmod prop. Past, present, future, they say. The Master Sword is a ship with which you can sail upstream and downstream through time's river. And this repeated imagery of describing time like a river is one I really love. Even if this entire interaction, as well as a few of the other ones, mainly being like, hey, by the way, you could travel back in time, just remember that in case this dungeon makes you do that, okay, thanks, bye. Sheik's inclusion in the story is such a nice, delicate little bit of musings upon the grander themes of this game. And again, as a kid, I just thought they were yapping on about nothing. But now these philosophical statements about the scarcity of time as an unstoppable river that must be learned to be enjoyed instead of one to be fought against hits different. And in our unique position as a traveler up and down that river, it is our duty to use that unique ability to save the world. And all these musings land especially well when they are serenaded by this beautiful, lovely bit of harp playing. But who is Sheik? Who is this mysterious ninja oracle of wisdom and knowledge and bars? Well, we find out when they come into the Temple of Time, clap their hands together, and then they begin to glow, and... it's Zelda! Oh my god! I wish this wasn't spoiled for me. Growing up in the 2000s, you just came out of the womb knowing that Zelda transforms into Sheik in Ocarina of Time. It was all over the internet and as a special move in Super fucking Smash Brothers. I'm so envious of people who got to go in blind and experience this plot twist raw.
That is Zelda?
Yeah.
Sheik is Zelda?
Yep.
Are you fucking shitting all over both of my nuts?
And if you're one of those people who experienced it like that, can you please let me know what it was like? I'm so jealous. And real quick, if you let me take a sidebar for a second, if we go back in time roughly 10 years or so, there was this big debate on Sheik's gender. Just endless and endless rambles of Sheik as a guy. No, he's a girl because it's Zelda in disguise. One developer would say this, another Nintendo guy would say this, and it used to be a big talking point. And with the context of today's modern world, some of the arguments are definitely head-scratching now. I always personally thought it was way cooler of an idea that Sheik was a man. If you're a very beautiful and delicate princess being chased after by an evil king, what better disguise than to completely transform into a different race and gender into this really cool ninja guy? Yeah! Just having Ganondorf going completely Mulan mode, being like, well, I'm looking for Princess Zelda, and you are clearly a really cool dude. Hell yeah, bro, how much do you lift? I love men. I think the official word on it nowadays is that Sheik is a girl. Simply Zelda in a different outfit, which is just so much lamer in my opinion. It's a magical world. Let her disguise as a man. But that doesn't make much sense. Yeah, but no one points out Sheik's big giant middle toe. That doesn't make any sense, but we allow that. Anyways, Zelda is Sheik, which makes all of this pixelated stare and her previous appearances make so much sense. She just wanted to guide you and point you in the right direction so you could both save the world, like you were always supposed to do before she made her mistake. And in the last 7 years, while she fell down the river we rode across, she had all the time in the world to think about time. And maybe that's why she wanted to share her thoughts with one of her only friends, her little bits of wisdom. Oh my god, because Sheik is Zelda and Zelda's the Triforce of Wisdom. I literally just just realized that right now. What the fuck? I know I just waffled on a lot about themes and story and characters in an N64 game that is 32 megabytes big, but it's one that's deceived me in its complexity. Yes, it's not Shakespeare, but it has so much more to it than I ever thought it did. If you let yourself buy into it, you'll pick up on cool bits of subtext and world building you never noticed before. Like in this last playthrough, I really noticed how Noboru is so insistent on saying she isn't like Ganondorf, despite them both being Gerudo, which is a kind of cool bit of character writing, how she is opposed to this legendary member of their society being the man born once every 100 years. And then it got me thinking about all the Gerudo and what their stance would be on the super duper evil man being that guy, and like, if you let it be, the game is rich. And I'll never know how much of it was proper narrative intent versus cool ideas they thought of to prod up bits of gameplay or tutorials which do take the priority in Nintendo's development philosophy. But that's art, isn't it? There could be a painting that is examined a million billion times one way when the author never thought of it having that intent. It's all about what you get out of it. An Ocarina of Time story about time and grieving the loss of childhood as you brace forward into the scary dark clouds of adulthood. It all comes together in one fell swoop in the For the faults and bits of jank the game does have, I think one of the things it absolutely nails is its finale. Firstly, when you set foot in the area where his castle resides, you get this small cinematic of Link being shocked at the desecration of Hyrule Castle. That paired with the lack of music and the sounds of crows squeaking in the background, it really nails the apocalyptic nightmare tone of the place. But once you're ready and have got all the sages from the dungeons, they grant you with a gay bridge. And then with the fruity power of the sages at your side, you enter Ganondorf's castle. You have to go room by room and do these mini puzzles to deactivate the barrier blocking your progress. And this is sort of a cute little reminder of the entire journey you've been on. You go through each room that's reminiscent of a dungeon you've been through before until you pick up this big rock. Whoa, wait, Link, I didn't know you could what? And then it begins. The slow ascent up Ganondorf's castle. Following the spiral staircase overlooked by stained glass windows, you can hear an organ playing a small theme in the background. As you get higher and higher, closer to the great king of evil, this ominous tune gets louder and louder, both increasing the tension of the situation as well as getting you excited to finally meet this foe. And once you do reach him, it turns out it was him playing the organ the entire time. Damn, man, after we kill you, I think you should definitely try Korean music, like maybe Thoreau, be a session musician, I don't know. The fight begins and this insane track kicks in as Ganondorf shoots these bolts of lightning at you. Just like in the Forest Temple, you gotta swing your sword back at the lightning bolt, and hey, it's tennis again. Real ones though know that you can use a bottle in this fight, which for some reason works at reflecting the lightning back at him. Okay, does anyone actually know why this happens? Was this just a bug they kept in later releases as a cute little Easter egg, or is there some great lore significance to an empty bottle of Lon Lon milk? Soon the fight is over though, a bit too short to be honest, but hey, it left a good last impression. Zelda is freed from a crystal cage and we look down at the limp corpse of the evil king, until he starts to bring down the entire castle. As it's collapsing all around, you and Zelda have to make your way down to the bottom, narrowly escaping the destruction of the occupied castle. This is so impressive for the N64. This large environment slowly being destroyed with so many individual parts falling down and with so much happening, I can't believe it runs on this. But it seems like everything is over until you hear a scary noise. You begin your approach towards the rubble left behind before a fiery wall cuts you off from Zelda. Bursting from the rubble once more is Ganondorf. He uses the power of the Triforce to transform into something far worse. Unlike every boss in the game, he has no subtitle, really driving home the importance of this final fight. The Master Sword is flung out of Link's hands, landing right next to Zelda in this great Dutch angle shot before the fight begins. It's kind of insane that this 25-year-old N64 game still has the best final battle in the entire series. To this day, no other final fight has come close to matching the intensity of the dire atmosphere found in this last triumphant effort. Koji Kondo once again brings out the big guns with this track, which is driven by the snare drum and choir. The track feels more hopeless than heroic and is beautifully paired with the cracks of thunder and the shrieks Zelda gives when you're hit. The lighting is also insanely dark, which is so genius because 1, it really hides how low poly this Ganon model is, and 2, makes him feel way bigger and scarier than he actually is, which is only heightened by these flashes of lightning illuminating his face for a split second. All of these elements combined just leave for an incredibly intense and dramatic final fight, one that feels so right for this game. After whacking at his tail enough with the Begoron's sword or the Megaton hammer, you get to reunite with the Master Sword and finish the fight off. Zelda tells you to please wrap it up, and then you drive the sword straight into Ganon's face. The music cuts before his dying screams flood your ears. Zelda, with the help of the 6 sages, combine their powers to seal him away forever in the sacred realm. And finally, it is over. Truly over. We finally won. If for some reason the game ended right here, I think it would still be a great finale, but it's this next little section that just elevates the entire thing. Link and Zelda meet in this ethereal plane, where the two finally get a chance to properly talk. She thanks Link, but then also apologizes. She blames herself for, well, everything. As a child, she didn't realize that Ganondorf would see right through their plan and manipulate the two of them into doing exactly what he wanted. And she feels guilty for robbing Link of his childhood. He was just a kid who suddenly had to be thrust forward in time to save everyone. She knows the preciousness of youth, the one Link so selflessly had to give up. And even on the N64, you can see the sadness in her eyes as she admits this. And so with a heavy heart, she asks for the ocarina, and with a few graceful notes, sends the hero back to his childhood. And with one final thank you, she says goodbye. And then without a word of exaggeration, the best credits of maybe any game ever begin to play. As this beautiful harp begins its tune, we are shown empty locales of places we visited throughout the entire journey. We saved the day, yeah, but there is this very bittersweet feeling to it. And I think that's because even though we were given the gift to go back in time to relive the childhood we lost, Zelda and all the people we saved remain behind in that damaged future. This is the consequences for her lack of wisdom as a child. And to make amends, she sends Link back to do the one thing she'll never get to do, reclaim that lost time. But it's something that doesn't even work for Link anyways, because he ends up sadly leaving Hyrule to hang out with the scary moon in the next game. It soon kicks into a happier tone, with Saria's song playing to the dancing, celebrating residents of Hyrule. Wait, the Kokiri, well, I thought they died or they left the forest. What? To see everyone dance and sing along gives that brief poignancy a bit of light and hope. This is what we were fighting for. These are the people we wanted to save. End it all off with a sequence of the sages flying overhead, as if to show that they are going to keep watch over the land now that Link is gone. But the best part of the sequence is seeing Link return to his childhood. With her mission as your guide complete, suddenly Navi begins to fly off and the two friends part. A moment that spontaneity hits you with a slight tinge of sadness. A low angle shows Link walking away from his mantle before dun dun these bells strike, and it makes the ending to this legend feel so grandiose, like this game was something truly special. We then end back in Zelda's courtyard. The young princess, unaware of the future that awaits her, peers into the window. Link, full of the knowledge and experience and the heartbreak of the future, approaches her. She turns around to look at him, and the game turns to sepia. The end. No fade to black? Just have to turn the console off? Alright. I can't describe to you how much I love these credits. It really is the special kiss, the special touch, the special ribbon to tie this entire game together. Yes, it's old and clunky now. Yes, it looks pretty rough. Yes, there are rough parts, but the bits of the game that were magical then still feel magical now. Under strict console limitations, Nintendo were able to tell this story that has a surprising amount of emotional resonance. One that only gets more profound with time. A story about growing up, both in the escaping preciousness of youth and the fearful uncertainty of adulthood, and how you have to appreciate one and have the courage to tackle the other. The other Zelda games do really incredible things or perfect a certain special thing, but when I think of the classic idea of what Zelda is supposed to be, I feel like it's Ocarina of Time. A world to explore full of mystery and magic and wonder, all tied together by an enchanting story and world that is so lovingly crafted and leaves an impact on you. And the thing about Ocarina of Time is that its legacy isn't this, but it's this. It led to the continuation of the best franchise in gaming ever. Without Ocarina of Time, we wouldn't have got Link's melancholic journey through time to save the wonderful people of Termina from their terrible fate. Without Ocarina of Time, we wouldn't have gotten to sail across the vast seas of Hyrule to save our sister with a big smile on our face and a giant hammer. Without Ocarina of Time, we wouldn't have gotten the epic tale of a farm boy destined for greatness and a cursed princess teaming together to save both of their worlds. Without Ocarina of Time, we wouldn't have gotten the tale of how the whole thing started, how the first Link and Zelda founded the very same Hyrule and the very same Master Sword we keep traveling through and fighting evil with today. Without Ocarina of Time, we wouldn't have gotten a fallen hero traveling through a vast, broken world, rebuilding it piece by piece. And then we wouldn't have gotten that again, but this time with cars! Boop boop. The DNA of this game is in all of these, even in the ones that reinvented the wheel again. And so without this game, this magical, beautiful, fantastic game, there wouldn't be Zelda today, not in the way that we know it now. And that is a world I'm glad I'm not a part of. Ocarina of Time isn't perfect. In fact, it's far from it. I can only imagine what it felt like playing this for the first time back in 1998. But nowadays it is janky and kinda ugly, and there will be some moments where you just have straight up zero idea where to go next. It runs at an abysmal frame rate at best, which by the way runs slower if you didn't live in any of these countries. It's small and there isn't much to do in the overworld really, except for hunt for ghosts and golden spiders. The story has gotten better as I've gotten older, like I just yapped about, but it's far from the best narrative you'll ever see in the series, let alone the medium of gaming. But despite all of these little nicks and hiccups that have shown with age, I love this game. When I think about what The Legend of Zelda is at its core, what it means to be a Zelda game, I think of this one. It's just what Zelda is to me, and I have so many little memories and anecdotes that I'm gonna make you listen to right. Oh my god, I forgot to talk about the music! When you turn on the game, you're treated to the sounds of galloping hooves across a moonlit horizon. A beautiful bit of imagery is then greeted by these piano chords and strings. The title theme in Ocarina of Time straight up might be one of my favorite pieces of music in any game ever, and the entire sequence is definitely my favorite title screen. It is so calm and relaxing, with its serene quiet juxtaposing so hard against the bombastic adventure of the rest of the game. Koji Kondo had to hit so many different moods and genres with the score to this game, but the one he had to nail absolutely was the big overworld theme that plays while you're exploring Hyrule Field. It's like he somehow scientifically distilled in a lab the pure sense of feeling of adventure and converted it into musical form. What I think is so funky about the song is that the middle bit gets really weird and oddly frightening. Why'd you do that, man? Come on, what? One of the funniest parts of the IGN review I mentioned earlier is that they criticized the game for not using the traditional Zelda theme anywhere. My big hot take is that I think the Zelda theme isn't that good. I've always just found it a tad boring and a bit dull, but this theme right here, which does give musical nod to the original, this to me encompasses the feeling of adventuring giant worlds better than any other. And when played by big live orchestras, really feels like this could be the main theme of the entire series. Or maybe this track. What? Remember how this was the first 3D Zelda and how exciting that was? Well, the score masterfully reflects that. In the opening, Navi flies throughout Kokiri Forest looking for Link's house. And yeah, it's just a cool way for them to show off fancy camera movements in a 3D space, but the sequence is brought to life by these magical runs. Everything in this game is so elevated by the music. Opening the item isn't just okay, it's all. And then when you get a heart, it's all triumphantly. When the princess turns around, she doesn't just rotate 180 degrees, but goes. And my favorite is pulling the Master Sword in and out of its pedestal. It's this big triumphant moment every single time, and it sounds so good here. Yes, I know it's from A Link to the Past, but shut up! That's a complaint I hear a lot about this game's soundtrack, that too much is borrowed from A Link to the Past. Where? I never learned to share with my friends. Where? Like, what are you talking about? Who cares? It's a series that is always borrowing from what came before to create something new. Why rewrite a beautiful town theme if that beautiful theme still works? There being a bit of connectivity between games musically has always really excited me. It's so lovely to see how old tracks get reinterpreted in new settings by new composers. So yeah, shoot Mr. Kondo for reusing the whistle melody from the original Zelda and Mario Bros. 3. It's a good set of notes. And if we're talking reused songs, yeah, Zelda's Lullaby did originate from its console predecessor, but the theme really comes into its own here. The new sampling and sounds allowed on the N64 really make this feel like a properly realized track, with the harp and ocarina bringing it to life. What I love about the song though is how it's incorporated into the game and its story. It's your connection to everything. It's used all the time to unlock puzzles, be it getting people to talk to you or changing the levels of the water. But it becomes so familiar and comfortable to you that when it's the thing that sends you back in time during the ending, it suddenly takes on this sad and poignant tone. While this isn't my favorite rendition of the classic, it's one that I love so dearly with all my heart. And then sometimes Koji Kondo does this. What was he cooking? One thing I think that gets slept on far too much are the dungeon themes. They aren't necessarily going to leave you humming a melody, but they do so much of the atmosphere building, it's insane. Inside the Deku Tree does this insane job at giving a track that feels mysterious but calming yet scary, and you never quite know how to feel from its offbeat syndication of notes. Then Dodongo's Cavern is straight up atmosphere_cave.mp3, and it is kinda unsettling. Inside Jabba Jabba's belly makes you want to drop a beat like, I'm Blink, you're a twink, hey, would you wanna maybe grab a drink? Ugh. Then you go to the Forest Temple, and this is where things get spooky. This one is a fan favorite, and for good reason. When the notes come in with the I think the eerie, mysterious tone of this moss-ridden stone tower is only enhanced when you hear genuinely, truly scary stuff. The Fire Temple had this really cool chanting that was deemed a bit too religious back then, when the company had a strict no religion policy. But the one they ended up using in later versions of the game I think actually might fit better anyways. The chanting always felt a tad too spooky in a temple which is about you saving goofy rock people who sleep by curling into a ball. This one I think fits better. Anyways, the water temple sounds like...
It's alright, like...
The Spirit Temple is another track which I think is just so madly underrated. You get this very cool synth intro that turns into this incredibly exotic melody. It's just so good, and one of those things I could write a million words on but not properly articulate. And then the Shadow Temple is just sort of there. And it's spooky. Ooh, you add voices that slide down in pitch. That is horrifying. Oh no. One thing I didn't know for years is that a bunch of the sounds you hear in these soundtracks, particularly in the dungeons, come from sample CDs. There's this fantastic video by Gilamasan who shows off a bunch of the source samples found by various people over the years and how they are used in the game's soundtrack. It's a super interesting video and you should definitely check it out. But it's also like, in what world are you gonna find a useful sound on a CD called A Poke in the Ear with a Sharp Stick 2? You're overlooking the original Poke in the Ear with a Sharp Stick. The first one's so much better! Anyways, when Kondo isn't using samples, he is going... The boss battle music in this game is so thrilling and exciting in every single instance, but especially when you hear them orchestrated. The cream of the crop though is Ganondorf's battle theme. Which is this super fast, weirdly timed signatured song. Like, music is usually in 4/4, which means 4 beats per bar, but this one is in 23/60. What the fuck? What? Why would you do that? 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 3 4 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 3 4 1 2 fuck, damn it! God, there's so much good music, and I haven't even talked about the fan favorites. Yeah, Gerudo's Valley is incredible. Song of Storms is so overrated and not that good. The Lost Woods is of course an earworm and a okay, yeah, I don't think Song of Storms is that good. Growing up, people would always put this on the top of list of the best music in this game, or make dubstep remixes of it, but I've just always thought, it's alright, isn't it? It's okay. Overall, this score is really incredible, and in a way, feels a little sacred, because it was the last one that Koji Kondo composed solely by himself. I've listened to it constantly, in and out of the confines of the game. I've giddily grinned listening to orchestrations of it. I've gone to orchestral concerts of the stuff and beamed a smile the entire time. It's captivated me so much, I spent countless hours in front of a piano, brute force self-teaching myself how to play so many of the songs. But I'm not going to show you that. I'm nervous. Anyways, the music is so good, but I interrupted myself before, so let's get back to that. Okay, yeah, I love this game, blah, 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 and I have so many anecdotes of it I want to share, so you know what, strap yourselves in. You've already made it this far, you've clearly got nothing better to do. Come on. Be for real. Ever since I was a kid, I've always put the ocarina in the C left spot, on every save file on every version. I know it's a waste of a slot, but it just needs to be there for some reason. A weird tradition I've had since forever. And also when I was a kid, I had a dream, or maybe I just imagined, this extra scene after the title screen where Link was riding his horse through a graveyard thing. But I guess kid me didn't realize that I made it up, and then I was watching the title screen scenes waiting for it to start, and it just never came? Did anyone else ever sort of gaslight themselves as kids, sort of before the internet came around and you could like confirm things? Or am I just insane? Was I just a crazy kid? Was I just a little silly boy? My copy of the game was a hand-me-down from my cousin and her N64. And even when I'm not playing Ocarina of Time, I have that golden cartridge proudly sitting in its slot, ready to go with its Sharpie written label crudely sitting on top. No, seriously, why would you write this? It ruins it. Why would you? One thing I always loved is that early on, you learn this song from Saria called Saria's Song. Very modest. And whenever you do anything in the game, you can call her and give her the gossip. As a kid, I did this after I did literally anything. Any dungeon or quest or whatever, I'd call her to see if she had anything new to say. At one point in the game, she stops having new stuff to tell you, and it sort of broke my heart as a kid. I appreciate them putting so much effort into the calls you can make though.
Thanks, Nintendo.
I have played this game countless times on like at least a million different platforms. I have it on N64, GameCube, the Wii U, the 3DS, and if you count renting it, the Switch too. And for Christmas one year, my parents somehow plugged right into the Matrix and figured out exactly what I would love unprompted and got me a boxed copy of the game, sealed and everything. So that's 2 copies on N64. And I've only opened this bad boy up once or twice because I don't want to tarnish the box or God forbid rip this beautiful instruction booklet. In fact, I love this game so much that I even imported a Japanese copy of the game. I talked about this in a video ages ago, but God, I love this box art so much. The Western look of Ocarina of Time is so simple, but it sells its importance. The regal gold accompanied by nothing else but the logo makes it feel like, yeah, this is the Legend of Zelda. We know we're the GOAT. And then over in Japan, we've got, can you fix that? Thanks. And then in Japan, we've got this cover, which is just so cool. Link in that heroic pose, hidden behind silver flames. It's so unique to any other cover, and while I don't know if it quite matches the tone of the game, it feels so incredible all in its own right. And then while I'm showing off cute little knickknacks, here's this other little Japanese import I have. A walkthrough guide with this insanely cool holographic cover. Like the instruction manual for the game, this is full of cool bits of art and I can't read this. I've scoured the internet my entire life looking at every corner of this game, from every version of the beta to the promotional material which sported this insanely dramatic commercial. certain bits of it fascinate me to no end, like the time travel and the way the timeline splits into 3 also just scratched my brain in this particularly satisfying way. It felt like a bunch of sci-fi elements disguised in a fantasy setting, which I loved. A lot of people complain about this, saying it makes no sense, but like, I don't know, I always found it super neat and quirky and so wholly unique to Zelda. I also love that you can name your character anything you want, a little bygone from when Zelda games were sort of pretending to be RPGs even though they're not. I really recommend choosing my bro or my dude. It makes the game way more chill. And there's so many things I didn't get to talk about, mainly because I never want to make a video over an hour ever again. Like the 3DS version, which is so fantastic, and the never-ending rumors of a big boy proper remake, and the entire history of the pre-released version of the game, including 2 giant leaks from a couple years ago that showed so much of that beta content. I will be back to make videos on this game. I'm never gonna shut up about it. Unless you don't want me to. This is the Zelda game that made me fall in love with The Legend of Zelda. It's the one that captured my heart and ran away with my imagination, and I love it. After this, I played Skyward Sword and fell in love with the tale of how it all began. Then I played Majora's Mask and experienced a morbid look at what the promise of death does to regular people. And then I played Twilight Princess for the Nintendo Peak Cube and the Nintendo Peak. And then I counted down the years, months, days, minutes, and seconds until Breath of the Wild came out. And then Tears of the Kingdom. I love this franchise so much, and it's all thanks to this one. I love Ocarina of Time. Twilight Princess is still better though, by the way. But what did you think? Please let me know your thoughts down below. I always love the conversation and stories shared. They give me a thrill like you wouldn't believe. Okay, wow, that sounded a bit wrong. I didn't mean it like that, you know what I mean? And if you like this video and want to get future ones early, plus an extended thoughts video thingy, then why not consider hitting that join button and becoming a member? You'd really be helping me out by my 3rd physical copy of the game, this time in Korean. That's exciting. But please have yourselves a fantastic day and stay snug. See ya.